just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. I'm here with a big fella, Tommy Hazelton. However, I'm looking at his wiki right now and it says Thomas O'Mealy Hazelton. Is your middle name O'Mealy?
Unfortunately, mate, it's not O'Mealy, as much as I might like it to be. A few mates have sent me that over the last few weeks, so maybe one of them's in on it. But, Anthony, named after my late grandfather, so
Yep.
yeah, proud of that one.
Absolutely. That's, I mean, look, the wiki, it can get, I mean, my wiki says that I've got heritage that I don't even have. I wonder who actually goes in there and just goes, you know what? I don't actually know whether this person is from this area. I'm just going to put it. I wonder whether it's like someone from that place that is proud, like wishes you were from that place. They're like, you know what? I'm just going to chuck it in there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Yoga put that on Wiki himself.
That would be unbelievable. That would be unbelievable. Mate, what a year. How's the off-season been for you?
Yeah, it's been really good. Me and the missus went over to Bali for about 10 days and spent some time with a host family that I used to live with. They were over there as well. So met them and spent the week, and Britt and Cora got married over there. So him and Shah tied the knot, and there was most of our squad over there. So yeah, it was a really good time.
No scandals. Holy.
Yeah.
Rugby league team goes to Bali, no dramas.
Yeah, crazy. You wouldn't read about it, eh?
Holy heckers. That is unbelievable. Mate, you said did you say your foster family?
Nah,
Sorry, not foster family, your
like a
billet
homestay
family.
sort of family.
Yep.
When I moved up to Sydney, playing 20s, lived with a couple of my mates for a few years, and at the end of our 20 season, one of them sort of went back home and the other one stayed around, just didn't play footy anymore. And Jimmy, my mate from 20s, we sort of built a good relationship, and at the end of that time I sort of didn't have anywhere to go, and he asked me if I'd want to move in with him and his family, so stayed there for the next 2 years, and they're like a second family to me now.
Yeah, wow. How good is that? How good is that? We'll definitely get to that. What an interesting. Yep. But, mate, you guys got to a prelim this year and you played obviously more games of footy. I guess, especially when you start playing first grade, you're just grateful to be there. And I know it's been a couple of years for you now, but you're really starting to kind of establish yourself. What's that feeling like after a solid season? Yeah,
it's good. Like, obviously, if you don't kind of win the comp, you're not satisfied with how you go, right? Because that's what everyone wants to do. You want to lift the premiership, but another full season of NRL, like, it's what you want to do. It's what you dedicate years of your life for, and I still am grateful. Like, every week you get to play for the Sharks, especially, like the only club that sort of gave me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. I just love every minute, and continuing to like understand the game and find my feet, and work out how to be a regular first grader. I'm still learning every day, and it was the final series. It was obviously good to get that win in week 2, and it was really good for the club, I suppose, more than the players, and everyone at the club probably deserve that for all the work they've put in, not just this year but for the last few years as well.
What was it like heading into, because I do recall when I played, sometimes sometimes it can be a good thing, sometimes it can be a bad thing, but sometimes you can insulate yourself from all the noise outside, so it's actually not as big a deal as the media make it. But then sometimes it can kind of leak into the bubble of like, it becomes a big deal. The whole talk about winning a finals game was like, that was the talk of the final series, which was, we spoke about it on the podcast a bit, quite a bit, where there were so many other big storylines, but it just seemed this Cronulla Sharks storyline like just dominated the headlines. Was it as big a deal internally or not as much? No,
I don't think so. Like, we did, I think, well, personally I did, but I think we did a pretty good job of sort of nullifying that and just sort of bunkering down, and at the end of the day, the only real opinions that matter are the ones inside our four walls anyway, and we just, go by trying to, I suppose, earn each other's respect and, prove each other right, because we know that when we're on, we can sort of match it with anyone, and, I don't think it mattered who we sort of played in that finals week. I think like it was the Cowboys, but we were just, we were confident the week before and things didn't go our way, and we sort of just kept the same level of confidence and just prepared as good as we ever had. And, the outside noise, if you don't allow it to creep in, it doesn't. And I think, we went about that week really well and, got the result at the end of it.
And so was it, did Fitzy say anything about it, or was it one of those things that kind of like, let's just not even bring it up? Like, was there a real line in the sand of like, all right, boys, there's a lot of noise going on right now. This is what you boys need to do to make sure you're not thinking about it, or?
Not supposedly, and like it was a bit player driven as well. Like, you sort of, if the cracks do appear, like it can sort of put a fracture in the team before you even get out on the field on the weekend. So, it was more just about, being strong-minded enough to not let it in and not read into it. And if you see an article, keep scrolling past, or don't even jump on social media, just sort of do everything you can. And like, it was 1 week of our lives at the end of the day. And, not reading a journal article or staying off Facebook or something for a week, wasn't that big of a deal as opposed to what we wanted to get out of that month. But yeah, like we did speak about it briefly, but it wasn't like don't do this, don't do that. It sort of comes down to the individual as well. Yeah.
I guess it's almost you'd almost rather the individual be making the choice, because that proves that a good standard has been set rather than having to be forced on everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think obviously sort of earlier in the year when we lost Dale, and not just speaking about this incident, but the way that Camo sort of stepped up this year and let it, like on the field, his actions speak for themselves, right? He punches above his weight. He's he's one of our best, if not the best, every week. And his leadership off the field was, he had it right because he's who he is. But the way like he got around the group and how everyone just trusts him and believes in what he says and buys into what he says was something, I can't say I didn't expect it, but, it was just, unbelievable to see the buy that he got off the boys and how much we all love him and trust him. And when he says things like this, you'd kind of feel bad if you did go against what he said, you know what I mean? Just because you respect him so much. So.
And he leads with his actions too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like he's just talking.
Yeah, for sure. And when he says he's going to do something, he's definitely going to do it. So I suppose you try to follow in his footsteps, both on and off the field. And obviously you want your actions to speak for themselves, but you got to get your off-field stuff right first. And he leads that as well. Yeah.
It's as a big fella yourself, when you see how hard he goes, because what do you reckon? Is he 93 kilos?
Oh. Yeah, maybe. He might not even be that.
Like,
I'm not sure.
Seriously, put it this way: he would be considered a small winger.
Yeah,
like he is not. He is not a big player.
Yeah,
and yet he rips in the middle so hard. When you watch him do that, you just going, mate, how are you doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he's sort of the same with Brails. Like he's
mate.
They're like, if you got to ask a question about who your favourite teammates are or the favourite players you play with, it would be them two for me.
Yeah,
like just have no right to be as, like, they dominate some games, right? And they have no right to do that, but they're just so like strong-minded and tough and resilient. Like Brails hasn't missed a game in 4 years, I think.
Mate, it's insane.
Camo is busted off the kickoff every week, and sometimes even before that. And
the boys give it to him about how cut he gets all the time.
Yeah, and he's just, it doesn't bother him. He's just the ultimate competitor. And I love playing with those guys, and they're two guys that I'm glad are on my team.
Yeah, he's mate, they're a pleasure watching. Brayley is such a good example of like how important good tackle technique is, because he's so small. Like, and he's normal size to normal people, obviously. Yeah. Compared to league players, he's a small. And I never see him wheeling out of tackles with sore shoulder or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, it's similar-ish to Cam Smith, where like not the biggest bodies, they just find a way to get it done.
Yeah, for sure. And like, if I like played against Blake, like I don't think I'd run at him. Like,
because he's a good tackler.
You talk about a team, and you like have like a number 9 that you might try to get at, but you see people go at him, and he just dips them, and they just end up on their back. And I'm just standing back there going like you have no excuse but to try and do something off the back of it, because he's 55 kilos wringing wet, and there's blokes double his size out there, and he's like leads from the front in that department. So. It's sometimes you sort of see him, and you have Nelson going at him or something, and you're like, and he just doesn't faze him who it is. It's just bends his back, and they usually end up on there. So
it's crazy, bro. It's so crazy. And for yourself, like heading into this final series, because you'd almost, I'm not sure if it was internally, but outside anyway, it looked like you had really established a role for yourself of like, it's very important to the team's performance that you come on and impact. Yeah. And sometimes when you're a rookie, you're just trying to do your job. So like the first couple of years, you're just like, look, my job is to come in there, make my tackles, and then get off the field. Whereas like it came this year, there was almost an expectation where they needed you to come on and impact. Did you feel that?
Not so much. Like you just said, you just want to come on and do your job right and deliver your 7 out of 10 every week. You know, make your tackles and run hard and support and, you know, the real basic stuff of the game that, you know, wins footy games at the end of the day. And obviously the moments are things that come, I believe, if you are doing those things right. And like, yeah, sort of, there was a couple of games this year where, you know, we might not have started well, and there probably is an onus that you come on and you not change the game, but just maybe fix up a little area that hadn't been going right for us, or maybe a second more in the ruck, or, you know, a pass wider off the ruck when you're in attack. And I think like Jack Willie, who's obviously gone to Para now, I think there was a few games this year, especially I think it was round 1 in his 100th game, where we're on the back foot and he come on and changed the game for us, and we know how that result went. Like, we got the win, but there is an important role on the guys that come off the bench, I reckon. And you know, like we had Big Royce at times. Siffer would come on and do similar things where you know, you want to come on and be a difference in a good way, not a bad way. And I think like more often than not, us guys got that right this year.
Yeah, and leading into, so you go down to Melbourne in round 1 of the finals, and you'd already been down there and obviously got the win. I know there was some players out both sides or whatever. Yeah. What was what was the nerves like going on down to Melbourne? Was it, you know, did you feel like, oh shit, like Melbourne, they had minor premiers? Like, what was the feeling like before running out to the Melbourne game?
No, it was weird, because I think this is what made the loss hurt so much more, is that we were so confident going down. Like, yeah, like a few players missing both teams, but like beating a team like Melbourne any time is a confidence booster, no matter who they have in or out or where it's played. And you know, we had prepared so well and went down there and maybe got the day wrong, because we got the week right. Like, we prepared so well and did all the right things, and it was disappointing to have the result how it was. And it was one of the only games I remember not being nervous. Like, it was just so excited. Maybe that backfired, I don't know, but I just, you know, I was so excited and so sure that we were going to win, that when you don't, it takes a bit more of a hit on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, like, I know that, like, I wasn't the only one feeling that, and to sort of, in a final series, have to back up, and now you know that, like, if we dish that up again, we're done for the year, and then we still haven't won that finals game, and just how everyone sort of rallied around each other and quickly assessed that game and got what we needed to get out of it, and then park it and focus on, you know, the Cowboys, and then get that job done. Like, that's a credit to the club and the team, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, what's it like, I guess, because you know Trindle and you know Hines, and like you see them every day, like they're your mates.
Yeah.
Just the headlines around it was just crazy. I guess, what was it like witnessing Nico, a bloke like that, go through stuff like that? Yeah,
it wasn't good, and like outside of footy, he's one of my best mates around here, and he's a guy that would do anything for you. And like, I think just so much of what was being said about him was just unwarranted. And it is disappointing that you know, things like that are said about someone like him, who does his part in the community, does his part for the club, and, you know, just, you know, seeing him come back in, like, he's our guy, right? And we all love him and trust him, and no matter what everyone was saying on the outside, it's absolutely not what we think. Like, there's a reason he's won the Dally M as a halfback, and I think that's his best position, and I think a lot of people around the club do as well. And just sort of that finals win was, you know, as like the club needed it, and he probably didn't need it, but it just felt good, you know, that he finally got that as well. And you know, he deserves all the success that the rest of us get. So it was just as tough as the time was as it was, and it is. You know, I think he's shown before in his life that when things go against him, he has the ability to bounce back in a big way. So I'm sure good things on the field are going to come for him shortly. Yeah,
it's just so interesting, because like the narrative was created, like, you know, oh, he can't win big games and this, that thing. Like, he'd been already to a grand final with the Melbourne Storm, and also he was a huge factor of their season that year. Like there were actually talks in that year that he may get Pappy's position at fullback. Like as in, obviously Pappy came back and played really well. And also like he'd won big games for you guys before as well, like in the season. So I understand the whole idea of like, yep, he's the marquee player, so there's always going to be a lot of pressure. But it was almost at times as if he was the only player out there and everything was his fault, like no matter what. Like even if he had nothing to do with it. So I'm with you, mate. I was just happy to see him get that finals win.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, something that doesn't get brought up that much, he's in his third or fourth year as a leader of a team. Yeah. Like, I always talk about a guy like Mitchell Moses now, who is absolutely flying. He's playing for his country. He had that incredible series. Mate, in his start of his career, it took him like 6-7 years to be the player that he is today.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a bit of patience is required with Nico, even though he's already won a Dally M,
Yeah, and like even like someone like Jerome Hughes, right, was a fullback, and he sort of transformed into that halfback role too. And the more time he gets, he's getting better every year still, which is crazy. And like he just won the Dally M too, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he still has more levels to go to his game, like leading a team, and especially a team like Melbourne. But like I said, like another Nico, this will be his third or fourth preseason as a half. Yeah. Excuse me, like. He's just going to keep getting better with the reps and the time in that position and things like that. So, I'm glad he got that win for himself and for us out of the way. And regardless of that, they're still going to say the things they're going to say.
Absolutely.
But
heading into next year's final series, they're going to be the same thing. Oh, he's only won one. Yeah. He's only won one, and it's just like, okay, well, we're back where we were before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the thing that's like, I guess, especially hard as a player, and as I said, like I'm all for if you're on big bucks, there's pressure. Like, and also the player knows that too. Like Nico knows that. He knows he needs to deliver. But it's like sometimes I sit back and go, out of all the players to go hard on, like Nico couldn't be a nicer bloke. Like there are other players that are dickheads, but like that do far less than he does for rugby league.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is what it is. So anyway, yourself, the game against the Cowboys. You get the job done, and I know they came back a little bit in the second half, but it was a pretty controlled win to a degree. Like I think maybe there was about a 20, 30-minute period where you were like, oh, okay, there might be a comeback here, but eventually it was a solid win. What was it like for yourself against the Cowboys?
It was good. The first half was unbelievable, and then sort of even early into the second half, we got those two disallowed tries. I think we were sort of. I don't know how to describe it, but like we were always confident, like before the game and then at halftime. But against a team like them, like you're never safe. They have strike everywhere and ability to score points from anywhere. And just the week being so confident and then going into the game and starting how we did, it does, like coming off the bench and then going out there. You have that confidence level sort of from the first time you get on.
Yeah.
Whereas. If you come on and you're on the opposite end of that, you might think, try to do too much, change the game quickly. It doesn't really work like that. But, just being a part of that win and getting a finals win and then being in the sheds after it and just seeing how much it meant to everyone and how much it meant to, the coaches and like Fitzy's first finals win as well. What he's given to the club in a short time, like no one deserves that more than him. And he works silly hours in that place, and at 7 o'clock on our day off, I'll be driving to the beach and his utes parked in there, and he gives so much of his time, like all the staff do, like all the coaches. To be there and experience that with them was special.
That's something that I think that, and I'm sure I was guilty of it too, but the support staff, like, so the coaches get raps, and rightly so, they're the main guy, and the players get raps. But the amount of hours the physios and all that do, like, the football managers, the physios, it is like, and they never get raps, never. Literally never.
Like our head physio still lives over like near Narrabeen, so he leaves his place at like 5 every morning to get here on time, and then he'll be like, they're the last ones out because when everyone's gone home, they're physio reports or doing plans or something like that. So he's got like 2 young kids as well, so. like that's just one example, you know, like someone who gives up so much of their time for us, who would never get a rap anywhere in public.
Yeah.
But like, it's not lost on the playing group the amount of the amount of hours and the amount of work they put in for us. But yeah, like you said, they're often the hardest workers that get, you know, no reward ever.
I still have this one moment where I feel guilty to this day. So I was like, would have been like 18 or 19, playing first grade, probably 19 turning 20. So still relatively young. And the physio was like, said something along the lines of like, oh, Denon, come see me, you know, for your shoulder or whatever it was. And I was like, oh man, do I have to? And he had the longest day ever.
Yeah.
And he like snapped at me. Yeah. And I'll never forget how guilty I felt because I was being such a sooky little, just a teenager. Like I know I was turning 20, but like I was acting like a kid.
Yeah.
Sooky, and this guy's trying to help my career. And when you're younger, you're not thinking like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember at the end of the year, I like pulled him aside at the night, like the usual night you have at the end of the year, and just like apologized to him for being a sook.
Yeah.
But that was like the moment when I realized I'll never take for granted ever again the amount of stuff the physios are doing for us.
Yeah.
Because think about you got these long hours, but you've also got to deal with teenage men, like not even teenage, like 18 to 23-year-old. You don't know what you're doing. You're an idiot.
Yeah, and then even like when we're in 20s, our physios then would work in a clinic all day. Oh, yeah. So they'd be working, like, imagine how that'd be a bit of a punish sometimes, I'd imagine.
Oh, mate.
And then coming after work to like a teenager, like teenagers, young adults training and complaining, like they'd have, you know, 15-hour days or 16-hour days most days of the week.
And travel on the weekends too with the team.
Yeah.
Holy.
I'm sure like they'd have families and kids and all that sort of stuff too that no one sort of thinks about or I suppose cares about in a way either. So like I said, they don't really get the recognition they deserve a lot of the time.
And their job is purely to make you better.
Yeah.
Like that's their whole it's like a selfless, they get no raps for it and they're just trying to make your career better.
Yeah.
And you're at there sooking, I had to work 6 hours today or something like that, you know? Okay, so obviously, what do you reckon? It's been quite a steady incline for you. I don't think it's been like, I don't think this year is like you just exploded and was like, I actually obviously enjoyed watching you build from 2022 into this, but was there anything that you did differently? Because you're 25, so obviously, was there anything that you did differently this year that, you know, took you to that kind of next-ish level, do you think, or you just built into it and matured?
Yeah, not really, I don't think. Like, I didn't change a lot. I think just, you know, trying to nail the training and the preparation, and obviously with injuries and stuff like that, it can't happen as much as you'd like it to every week. Yeah. But I think like I'm starting to understand how important that side of it is. Like you'd be guilty in the past of turning up to training and, you know, just getting through it just for the sake of getting through it. But, you know, actually trying to still learn the drills that you've been doing for 4 years and try and get something out of them, or, you know, try and actually, you know, exist in a session, not just sort of cruise through it. Like get something out of it and work harder in it than you might have before. And I just think like when you have guys in our squad like that are banging on the door every week, like you have no, like you can't not do that. Like someone like Tooks who's just coming into, you know, he's played a fair bit of first grade this year, and someone like him who's just knocking on the door every week and playing as good as he was in reserve grade, like you have to chip up on little areas at training and in your life to not give you an edge, but to make sure that you're still competing with guys like that, because you know, if a bad game and a few bad training weeks or something like that, you know, it's you know, your spots are never safe when you have guys like that coming in behind you. So that was more what I dived into, and then obviously just another year. Like had the year last year and experienced like pretty much a full year of NRL, so I had that behind me as well. And just sort of still another year figuring out my body and what works and what might not, and probably had a little bit more confidence this year than I did last year. You know, passing the ball and those sorts of things. Whereas, you know, in your first year of NRL, you're just trying to not make any mistakes and just, you know, run the ball one out and make your tackles. And I suppose that a lot of that too comes down to our like our coaches, like Josh Hannay does a lot with me on our passing and that sort of thing. And there's a few games this year where might not have gone our way, and we'd just, be taking hit-ups. And he just sort of said, like, you've done so much work on it. Like, why don't you just back your skill and back your ability? And, when you're under pressure, think about it more so you can execute it better, you know what I mean? And I just, think they're just repping out things like that to give me, like, a different side of my game too, not just the running. So, just like I said, it was good, and I'm excited. Got another preseason coming up, and go around next year and do it all again, and hopefully go one better.
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. And you're from Goulburn, correct?
Yeah, Goulburn.
Now, before I get into that, though, we've got a segment brought to you by Grumpy Coffee, grumpycoffee.com.au. Grab your beans today, or pods. Mate, what makes you grumpy and what turns your frown upside down?
Well, grumpy. Recently just moved into a new apartment in Cronulla. It's a really nice apartment, but we don't have any blinds at the moment. So we only have like really light curtains. So as soon as the sun pokes its head up in the morning, about 5:30, it's straight in my bedroom door. So that's made me a bit grumpy lately.
I thought you were going to say moving.
Nah,
moving.
That's no good either.
No.
And turned my frown upside down about 4 months ago. Me and my partner bought a dog, got a little spoodle, Marley. So if you have a loss or a bad day at training, you come home and she's the happiest thing in the world. So that turns your frown upside down pretty quickly.
Mate, absolutely. A spoodle. So what's that, a poodle with a...
Cocker spaniel. And she's a toy poodle too, so she's not that big.
So she's real little?
She's, little. So I probably look like a freak walking her down at the beach. Just like a 6'6" dude with a dog the size of his foot. So,
oh, that's good. That's
good.
So good. Mate, dogs are just like, they are truly...
the best.
We don't deserve them.
No, we don't.
we
really
seriously don't deserve dogs.
And I was always like, because I had grown up, we had like a Ridgeback cross Mastiff, so she was a big girl.
Yeah.
And my partner's got like 3 little dogs back home with her family, and I was always like, I'm not getting a little dog, like no way.
Yeah.
Went out and bought this thing, and I've just been joined at the hip since. Can't get enough of it.
You're like the meme, I think, that's on the internet where it's like, Dad says he doesn't want a dog, and then they're like, the next footage is Dad just being obsessed with the dog.
Yeah, that's exactly me.
Mate, from Goulburn, what was growing up in Goulburn like for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, had a fair few mates in our street, and just down the bottom of the hill, there's a park. So after school every day was soccer and cricket and rugby league and bull rush and those sorts of things.
Oh, the bull rush.
Just the bull rush.
Bull rush would have been, was it tackle bull rush or tag?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, of course.
And then, sort of through the summer months, you'd be, especially like school holidays, you'd be out from 7 in the morning till 7:30 at night, just running amok and riding your bike in a little river near where we live. So when Mum and Dad would let you, which wasn't very often, you'd be going down there. And there was always something to do, and we had a good crew around our neighbourhood. And then, sort of as you get on and you get a bit older and start sort of hanging out with your mates as teenagers and that, and they're getting their licenses, and you're driving around to Macca's and doing, just teenager stuff that you sort of think about now that were, some of the funnest times of your life, and you weren't even doing that much. And, it was a really good place to grow up, and apart from the weather, like, it gets pretty grim there sometimes. Ooh. And the old 9 o'clock Sunday morning footy games with the frost still on the field weren't great, but it's a good town, and a lot of really good people there, and a lot of people that I still talk to and have a lot of time for live there. So it's always good getting back there and being able to catch up with them when I can.
I used to work in Marulan, and so I used to say, shout out the Astra. I think it was a motel. Yeah. So we had a living away from home allowance.
Oh, yeah.
So basically we had to live away from home to go to work each day.
Yeah.
And I used to stay at the Astra.
Yeah, right.
Mate, good feeds there.
Yeah.
Good feeds at the Astra. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
I think it was the Astra.
On the corner?
I think so, yeah. And I had like...
I think it's the Asta.
Oh, Asta. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
It's like this little motel. You used to stay there all week and then drive home on the weekends.
Yeah, perfect.
Mate, good feeds there, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it is. Real good pizza, actually, if you're a pizza guy. Wood fire and that in there, it's good.
Mate, and so like growing up, I guess... It sounds like it was all sports, or was it just like rugby league? Like, what was it for you?
I played soccer all my life growing up, and my first full season of footy was under 15s back home.
Wow, okay.
So, I was a soccer soccer tragic.
Who's your team?
Manchester United.
That was my team going up.
Sacked the coach last night.
Yesterday.
Or he left. But sort of mum wrote me into Manchester United when I was a young fella, and she was a Roosters fan too, so she wrote me into that.
Okay.
But yeah, sort of did the soccer. All my life till I was 15, and played a couple of years down in Nowra for a team called Southern Branch, and there was 3 of my mates from Goulburn, so we'd travel down twice a week, and then on the weekends to train. And then under 13s and 14s, I played for a team called Wollongong Wolves, and they were in the Sydney Premier League. So mum would be driving me 2 or 3 nights to Wollongong a week.
No way.
And
what's that, an hour and a half?
Again to Wollongong and Sydney on the weekend. So they'd be doing 15, 16 hours a week in the car, taking me to training for 2 years, and played in the Nationals under 13s and under 14s up at Coffs Harbour there. So
no way.
There was a New South Wales Metro and a New South Wales country team.
What position were you?
Defender, centre back.
Okay, yeah, big boy. Were you always tall growing up?
I was always tall. Yeah. And just it's sort of
physical.
Yeah, it's just sort of that come with the height, I think. But sort of the end of that Nationals tournament under 14s, come back to actually trial for that Wollongong team again, and I didn't get picked when I came back.
Yep.
And I think that was the sort of moment where obviously upset driving home in the car, and your mum's trying to comfort you like a mum does. And it was sort of not long after that I just had a thought of, it's been 4 years of them doing this constantly, and is it something that I really want to do? I don't know. And I'd save them a lot of time and a lot more money by not doing it. So I told mum that I was sort of giving that avenue up, and just played a year of local soccer with a few of my mates back in Goulburn, which was good fun. And
so just quickly, when you say Nationals, were you playing for New South Wales, or were you playing for it was a national tournament?
No, so there was, it was at the Nationals, so there was just 2 New South Wales teams, a New South Wales Metro team, which was all Sydney guys, and then a country, which could be guys from anywhere outside that.
Yep.
But we were, the first year we were in Pool B, so it was against sort of Northern Territory and Tasmania and those sort of teams. But the second year we were in the top pool, and we ended up only losing on, because there's no finals year, it's just a table, and our goal difference wasn't as good as the other New South Wales teams, so they ended up winning it. But
please don't tell me there's no finals because they don't want a hectic game, or what's the reason?
I don't know. I think it's just they do that in soccer a lot. It's just a league sort of thing.
Okay.
But a final would have been awesome for someone like that.
When I was coming through, there was finals.
Yeah.
And there was also, it was just Queensland, just New South Wales. They didn't split it up.
Yeah, right. Because they had, I think for most states, well, I know for Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, they had 2 teams each state.
Yeah, interesting. I actually don't mind that.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, like growing up, if you've got a whole state and you can only pick 13 players or whatever, there's so many guns that don't make that side.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's why, if you're going to go to a tournament, if you have 2 teams from the bigger states, a lot of the second teams will be better than some of the smaller states.
Yeah.
But also it makes the tournament bigger.
Yeah, for sure. Our first year, we won that pool, so we won our Pool B in the under 13s year, and then the under 14s year, we beat the other New South Wales team in the very first game of the tournament.
No way.
And then they end up beating us at the end on goal difference. So
what?
Yeah.
Surely it should go on who won the game.
Result, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But I still remember we were, I can't remember who we were playing, but it's right at the end of the game. We were drawing 1-1, and off a corner, ball just bounced me. I was 2 meters in front of the goal and just kicked it straight into the crossbar. And as it's bounced back over our head, the refs ended the game, and we would have won the tournament if I scored that goal. So it still burns me a little bit,
mate. It's crazy. As you get older, when I was playing, soccer growing up or any sport, it was my world. If we lost, my whole devastation.
Yeah.
And then when you get older, you're it's under 13s. Who gives a shit? But when you're that age, it is literally your world.
I still remember even just local soccer as an 8 or 9 year old. I'd be nearly crying after losing games like that.
I'm feeling you.
I'd walk off and mum would be half laughing, and that all these parents would be look at this kid, this is just a game of soccer and he's crying on the side of the field. But and then sort of when got back from that Nationals, and I told mum I didn't really want to play anymore, and she bought me a Plus Fitness membership for $9 a week.
Okay.
And started walking from school to the gym with my mates, and that's how the footy career sort of got underway.
No way.
Yeah.
It's just quickly on the soccer selection.
Yeah.
So you could make the New South Wales countryside,
Yeah.
but you couldn't make the Warrington Wolves side.
Yeah,
for your,
Wollongong Wolves. Yeah.
Sorry, Warrington.
Yeah, Warrington.
Wollongong Wolves.
Yeah.
So was it your age group that you couldn't make?
Yeah, so I was going back for the under-15s trials, and sort of went down there, and at the end, like, it was just the old school. They'd have the names on the paper, and they'd read out the guys who got picked, and the guys who didn't get read out weren't in, and my name didn't get read out, and I was there for like a couple of years, and there was a new coach there, and he just came up and apologised and whatever, and
New coach.
I was just like, sort of, no worries, like, just obviously being polite, and I
Yeah.
was shattered, like I actually was, and maybe it happened for this reason, and like I'm probably only here now because that didn't go the way I wanted it to. So
yeah, it's just a really good lesson for young people that, like, making those teams is just someone's opinion.
Yeah,
and sometimes you can get a new coach that might have a specific player that he really likes that happens to be in your position.
Yeah,
and growing up, the player that he ended up actually playing for our country and everything, and playing overseas.
Yeah,
but I used to get his position all the time, and then a coach got brought in that might have been related to that person, maybe. And then all of a sudden there was pressure on my spot. And it's just a good example of that it's just someone's opinion, you know?
it is, definitely. And like that, I've been involved in, lots of country sort of rugby league teams from 16 to 18, and they take you to a carnival with 200 kids and they tell you that one of them's going to play NRL. And, if you don't even get picked in that team, you sort of leave there thinking like, God, like I'm that far away. But sort of at the end of the day, that's, one or two guys' opinions again. So, it's not the end of the world. And, I was just lucky enough to keep chipping away at it and keep working, and happy with where I'm at the moment.
I understand why, parents and that say that to kids. Like, I get it. You don't want kids getting their hopes up and focusing purely just on rugby league and think, but I just don't get, like, surely we should give kids enough credit where let's not shatter their dreams. Let's just make sure they take care of school as well. Do you know what I mean? We can do both. Like, I don't understand the idea of like, hey guys, just so you all know, most of you aren't playing NRL. Yeah. How do you know, bro?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
How do you know?
Like, I remember being in like year 11 and 12 and having a meeting with my careers advisor, and telling her that I wanted to be a rugby league player, and she would be like politely trying to tell me like,
don't do it.
You can't expect that to happen. You can't, not that it's not going to happen, but it might not. You need to prepare, or you need to find something else that you want to do in case that doesn't work. And me being me was just like sort of telling her what she wanted to hear, but in my head going like, nah, it's all right. Like, I'm going to play footy. Like, it doesn't matter. But, they're even now, like, studying during the years and stuff like that. Like, it's not around forever, and it might not even come around for some people. So, always being prepared for something outside of it is important, I think.
For sure. I mean, my year 7 teacher, when I was like, I want to be a professional athlete, he was like, come on, mate. Like, what are the chances of that? Like, that's not going to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just reckon there's a way to say it to them of like, that's awesome. Like, fully follow your dream, but just give yourself a safety net instead of going, that's not probably not going to happen. Okay, so you're devastated. You go home, and your mum.
Yeah.
Did your mum get you the fitness first thing? Was it fitness first? Did you say?
Plus fitness.
Plus fitness.
Yeah.
To make sure you just stayed active.
I think so. Like, I think she was, just sort of making sure I was doing something, because that was 4 days of the week for 4 or 5 years straight. Like, if I just went from that to doing nothing, maybe I wouldn't have sort of fell into footy. But actually, funnily enough, my youngest sister was in the Sharks Tasha Gale team at the time.
Yep.
So we'd be driving down to Sydney to watch her play for the Sharks, and I was just sort of put a bit of a bee in my bonnet, going like I want to be doing that. Like, why does she get to do it? And, that was probably a driving factor behind me sort of through those years, 16, 17, 18, really knuckling down and trying to make something of a footy career too. But even until I moved to Sydney, like, I didn't really expect it to be an avenue that I would do for a career. Like, I was about to start a carpentry apprenticeship in Goulburn when I got the call to come up here and trial, and even after the trial, like I remember still talking to Pete. I'm still good mates with him about, starting my apprenticeship the year after. And, when I got the call to say that I'd been picked, I'd only got like a pre-Christmas trial, and even still sort of saying like, will I still have my job when I come home if it doesn't go how I want? And, that was, 7 or 8 years ago now, and I'm still here. So, it's
still haven't gone home.
Yeah, still haven't gone home. I seen him on the weekend, actually, Pete, and I said, I don't know how long rugby league's going to last, but we still have the job for me. He goes, I still use your hammer today. So,
nice.
Maybe I'll walk into that after. Who knows?
I hope so. And so you go. What do you reckon it was that your mum knew to keep you physically active? Was she an athlete herself, or
no? She wasn't. Like, she played a bit of hockey and that growing up, but she was never like really an athlete. I think it could have just been mum knowing how disappointed I was, just thinking maybe to be good for me to not take frustration out, but, if you have a bad day, you sort of go to the gym, work out, it might make you feel a bit better. But I suppose at that time, you never lost at 15 or 16, but like I'd put years of my life into wanting to be a soccer player and wanting to play for Manchester United, right? And that was not taken away from me, but it got sort of squashed at a young age. So I think, it was just her looking out for me, making sure I was still doing something. And like I played a few in under 14s. I played a few games of footy when I could on a Sunday. And I think, she assumed that would be my next point of call. And she, like everything in life, she just wanted me to do the best I could. And I reckon she felt that putting a bit of size on and a bit of weight on would help me be a better footy player or be as good as I could be at footy. So I think that was why she sort of lent into that.
It's just like switched on. Like, a lot of parents, that would have been like 15 years ago or something maybe. Oh, not 15, 10 years ago?
10 years ago,
10 years ago. Just to know to keep you active. A lot of parents may not have just even known that. They would have said, okay, he doesn't want to play soccer anymore, then just doing what it is. So it's funny how it's not funny, everyone knows it, but just such important decisions by parents. You can go in two totally different directions.
Yeah, definitely.
So what made you go, all right, I want to play rugby league now?
Just like even a couple of years before, like I'd get to school on a Monday and all my mates played footy, every single one of them.
I know how you feel, bro, because I was out of school too. None of them played soccer.
Yeah, and I was like walking in on Monday morning and they'd all be talking about footy and this bloke did this yesterday, and I'd just be sitting there thinking like, no one wants to hear about my soccer game on the weekend, so I'm just going to stand here and listen.
I'm feeling you, bro. Same
I was going to stand here and listen. And I suppose like even in the last sort of year I was going down to Wollongong, you'd finish school and you'd dread going to training, like 2 hours in a car and whatever. And when I started playing footy, they're actually all your best mates. So you leave school and you were that excited to go to training. And you'd walk straight from school, straight home, get your stuff, and you'd be at training 2.5 hours early, just kicking a football through goalposts for 2 hours. I just, the way that my friends and the coach at the time, who was one of my best mates' dads, and the club just made it fun and enjoyable and made it somewhere you wanted to go and wanted to play. I think that's what really tinkered my love for it.
You think
those couple of years?
I'd love to get your opinion on it, because soccer, at least for me when I was growing up, was way more like strict and professional. And professional's the wrong word, but like just strict. I don't know. What was the culture like for you, culture shock wise?
Coming from soccer to football?
Yeah.
I suppose with soccer, everything's pretty technical and proper and everything sort of important. Whereas if you're a 15-year-old kid coming to play rugby league, usually the best guys on the field are just the ones who are the biggest and the fastest and strongest at that age. Whereas soccer, you could be the smallest guy on the field, but if you were, had really good technical ability with your feet and good spatial awareness, you could just win a game on your own. If you were, if you didn't even look like an athlete. Whereas sort of coming into the footy side of things, wasn't carefree, but it was just sort of just go out there and
just rip in
and have fun. And that was what I liked so much about it, just how enjoyable it was playing with all your friends. And even losing, like it was, whereas in soccer it took a bit of a toll on me. When you were playing with your friends, and you'd lose, you'd still be coming off the field laughing because you still had fun anyway. That's just how enjoyable it was from the start. Made it something that I wanted to try and have a crack at.
Yeah.
And even if I wasn't playing NRL, I'd still be playing footy back in Goulburn with all my mates right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, it was so fun, and you'd miss those days. And, you know, maybe they still talk about when I retire coming down for 1 year and playing another season with them at 35 or whatever it might be. But, just started so many good times playing footy back in Goulburn with all my mates. And, it's something, like, you don't miss it because you're playing NRL now, which is what you want to do at that age, but you do miss the memories and stuff that you made back then.
For sure. Okay, so at what point do you reckon you go, and I know even when you moved to Sydney, you weren't like, oh, this is a career.
Yeah.
But did you start to go, I'm actually decent, I go okay at this, or did it take quite a while for that to happen?
Yeah, I think, like, in our under 16s year, so the under 15s year was sort of just your first year, just out there running around and not really have an idea what's going on. I think maybe like another year of maturing with age. It was sort of that under 16s year where I started to work out, like, how to run a line properly, or, you know, those sort of things, and how to, you know, maybe manipulate defenders, and, you know, just little subtleties that I thought, you know, if I can get good at this, it might help me be a good player this year against some of the teams we play against. And sort of just the more I played, the more I worked little things out, and I actually played on an edge until I came to Sydney.
No way.
Rower, and
holy
the recruitment guy at the time asked me if I'd ever played front row, and I was like, oh, not really. And he said, like, they were obviously pretty sorted for back rowers, so he just chucked me in the middle for a trial, and that's where I've been stuck since. So, just sort of every year I played, I sort of got a bit better and worked out how to use my body more and those sorts of things. And when I was in under 18s and playing first grade for Goulburn, you'd play 18s in the morning, then you'd sit around for a few hours and you'd back up in the arvo. And a couple of games, you know, I'd sort of play 18s, 20, 25 minutes and come off, and then play a whole game of first, and, you know, be like one of the best on the ground or get men in a match or whatever. And it was sort of those moments where I started playing against men, and I was like, I think I have something here. And you never say that to anyone. Like, it's always something you keep internally, right? But, sort of when I got the call to come up here and trial, that was a moment where I was like, you know, you never think NRL is going to be where you end up, but, you know, I might be able to play a couple of years of 20s here at the Sharks and a couple of reserve grade games maybe, but it wasn't until I sort of got here, and even my first year of 20s, I only played 4 games, and like at the end of that season, you go like, you know, at least, you know, I've played 4 games. If it doesn't work out for me, like, at least I can come and say how to go. And then,
and you wore the Sharkies jersey as well, which
had all the training gear and all those sorts of things. And then the next year came around, I played every game except one, and we were minor premiers and went straight out the back door in the finals in extra time 2 weeks in a row, which hurt. But it was sort of at the end of that year, I had a good year. You know, got the player of the year for our team, and a pre-season with NRL, and that was sort of the moment where I was like, okay, like, it's time to give this a shake, I think. Yeah,
and so the call to come and do a pre-season with first grade, like, I mean, that's the call. I mean, I feel like I remember that call more than I remember even getting told about my debut. Like, it's just such a huge deal, because you go from first grade's a lifetime away to I'm literally every morning walking in and there's a first grader next to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, and
especially like watching on TV, guys like Andrew Fafita and Woodsy was there at the time. 2 guys that had, you know, played for New South Wales and Australia on multiple occasions. 2 big dogs at the time. Yeah. Just, you know, walking into training after a couple of weeks, because we obviously, the young guys go back first, and then the day they all roll in, you're like fuck, like, these guys are here, and I'm training off like with them and learning off them every day. Like, it was surreal. And I still sort of remember like my manager ringing me, and like, you can't see through the phone, but like, just had the biggest smile on my face, like holding the phone up to my ear, and I was just so excited. And you know, all the guys that were there at the time were just so welcoming and you know, keen to help you. And I think that's a big part of you know, why I love being here so much, was just that from the first day there was no sort of dissent towards young guys or the new guys. That like, they just welcomed us so much. And that's like what it is now. If you've played one game, or you've played a few 20s games or you played 150 NRL games, you're treated the same by everyone at the club, and that's what makes it such a good place to be.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. It's like it didn't used to be like that at all.
Yeah, there's a few guys that say that even when they were the young guys, they have a few stories about how it was then. And
yeah,
no thanks.
It's as I said, there's always like making young fellas feel comfortable is such an important role of a club because you're already so unsure of yourself as a young man. Like even take footy out of it and just life. Like you already don't know really who you are. Like what is a man? How do I become a man?
Yeah.
So like any way a club can make young men feel comfortable, it's definitely going to help the club long term, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And like if you come in and like, if, not speaking for myself, but if like some guys come in and they get treated poorly or whatever, like there's a chance they might just throw the towel in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like could be someone's career that you've damaged from, not treating them, I suppose not treating them right, but not just treating them equal at least. But yeah, I was lucky that we had a lot of good guys that welcomed us all from the start, and yeah, it was really good.
So what year was this? Up 2021?
2020 was my first.
Okay, so
the end of 19, start of 20 was the first.
Okay, yeah. And so the end of 19, start of 20, especially with forwards, the intensity of a preseason with like the wrestle, the contact. Yeah. How did you go with all that? Yeah,
it was a bit of a shock at the start. Like, I sort of wasn't that, like I was tall then, but I was sort of like just a skinny, tall dude to a degree, and still had a bit of me baby fat getting around, so I was like a bit of a slob kind of. And having, like guys I was speaking of that would just be able to use their body in different ways than me, and you sort of go into a wrestle session and you just have a red head on, you're not breathing and you're just trying to do your best, and they end up being some of the hardest times of your life because you're trying not to get picked up and thrown and tossed on your back and those sort of things. But yeah, I still like it. The first couple of weeks when you're getting into it and it's still sort of guys your own age, you're all right, but
when the big dogs
you quickly find out that they know how to use their elbows better than we do. And you're getting elbows in the sternum and in the bicep and those sorts of places. You get to the end of the week and you're looking forward for the Saturday arvo for a bit of time to let your body sort of recuperate, but come straight back around on Monday, you were back in for it again. But it was as enjoyable as it can be because it's everything you'd wanted to do up to that point, and it's like everything. It has good days and bad days, but I still just remember being so happy that I was being able to train with those kind of guys every day. Yeah,
those Saturdays when they finish, honestly, it was like a high.
Yeah,
when you finish the tuck, because I don't know about you guys, but Saturday for us was the towel up session. Like you're getting flogged.
Yeah.
But then when you walk off, you're just covered in sweat, you're dripping, but you know that you have the afternoon and the next day off.
Yeah.
Mate, I still remember that feeling.
Even like, I reckon the afternoon and the night is better than the day off because, you got all that day and you can do whatever you want and you still got the whole next day after. Whereas
100%.
If you get on the Sunday and as soon as, I swear, like 1 or 2 in the arvo hits,
mate.
you're just going,
dreading
right, and it just flies by and all of a sudden you're in bed and the week's about to start. But
you got a whole week of it again. So that's 2020, and so did you go straight into New South Wales Cup or did it take a bit to get into that side?
Yeah, so after that pre-season, that was when COVID first happened.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't we played the trial game against the Bulldogs in PNG that year, and then we came back, and that was when it sort of happened, and we weren't sure if because they were sort of saying the comp might get shut down, it might not, and we turned up to Henson Park training for Newtown, and they had like kick tennis set up and all these things, and we were like, well, if we're not training, there's every chance that we're like not going to play, and he just said they've decided to shut down the comp, and I was like, oh shit, like there was still guys, that were going back to NRL and they'd be locked in the bubble and they'd still be able to train every day and that, but like for us it was all back to work and it was back to square one basically, and at the end of that year,
what's that feel like? Sorry to interrupt you, mate, but like
you're right,
it's the forgotten period. Like we focus on the NRL players in the squad. We always talk about how hard it was for them, and don't get me wrong, to the wider public it was harder than anything, so I'm not trying to compare the two. But we never talk about the guys that hadn't played first grade yet, but they were on the natural progression to do it.
Yeah.
And I reckon again, this is pure assumption. I reckon we lost some players to the game in those couple of years.
Yeah, because I was lucky enough that I still had a job then. I was working for a landscaping company in the Shire, and I could go back to work, and it affected me because it was sacrificed a couple of years, and you sort of think like, if I don't play this year, like how am I going to get brought in for another preseason or another shot at it? Yeah. And I remember sort of speaking to Mark, who was my mate's dad, who I lived with at the time, and he just said this would be a good time to find out who really wants to be an NRL player and who doesn't. Like who's going to keep training through the year and who's going to keep doing those sort of things. So me and my mate, we built like a squat rack out of timber from Bunnings and bought some weights and a barbell off like Facebook Marketplace and drove out to Concord to pick those up, and sort of had the timber set up and get home from work every day, and there was nothing else to do, so we just lift weights in the backyard and that sort of thing. And there's a few times through that year, and the next year was sort of just as bad for me because I played in the trial game against St George and like had a really good game, and we had a bye for Newtown round 1 and round 2 against Parramatta. 2 had a good game, but with about 15 minutes ago, I ended up breaking my hand. And sort of after the end of the game, I came off and put a bit of ice on it. It was real sore, and the bone in the bottom of my hand that broke, it took like 14 weeks to heal because it got no blood supply. So the week I was due back to play, Newtown had a bye again.
Oh my God.
And then the comp shut down after that for the rest of the year.
No way.
So I'd got to that point and I was still living with my mate, and I was just like, sort of think it's just not meant to be for me. Like it really isn't. Like
because you're already a late developer. You didn't start playing until you're 15.
Yeah, and
so
then
you're playing catch up.
Lost two more years of trying to figure out how to just get better, and I just didn't have that again for 2 years. And I think at the end of that year was when Fitzy was coming in, and I remember I was actually on the train coming back from Earlwood when I went to see a guy to get treatment on my hand, and he rang me, and that was when he first sort of said that he wanted me around in some capacity, and I was just going like I've played 2 games of football in 2 years, and for him and Moons to sort of see that I still have something was, I was so excited after that, and just grateful that I'd still had that opportunity, because for a while there it just looked like I was just going to move back to Goulburn and play footy again with my mates. And sort of when you hear that, it gives you a little kick, and you sort of got me back into gear, thinking like, no, like this is what I want to do. Like I'm gonna give it a go. And I sort of thought I owed that to him and the club as well for sort of showing that faith in me when they had no right to, really.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. It's like when you're younger and you're kind of coming through the grades, sometimes you feel like, do they even know that I'm here? You know? And then you get the call and you're like, holy shit, like, they actually know I'm here.
Yeah, for sure. And like I even still remember when I told my mum and dad that he'd call me and he'd called me, and that was when they were just sort of like, oh, well, you don't really have a choice now. Like you're staying. And I was like, like I'm glad that it worked out like that, because if he didn't call me, I don't think I probably would have got anything from another club, because I hadn't played footy in 2 years. So here I am.
How close do you reckon you were to going done?
Yeah, a lot, especially like during the times where you couldn't do anything on weekends. And I was lucky that I lived with my mate, so you could come home from work and we'd still hang out together every day and that, but sort of just you don't think you're getting anywhere in life, and then you have mates back home who are like buying houses and all that sort of stuff, and you're still just scraping the barrel trying to get through and trying to chase this. Like there was times there that you'd be upset, and I'd be on the phone to my older sister more so, like just upset in tears, like it's not working. Like why is it not working? More so than anything, like thinking that the world was against me and those sorts of things. But I'm just glad that I had like my mate Jimmy and his dad Mark, and my sisters, more importantly, and my parents that sort of helped me get through those tough times. And I wouldn't be here today without them. Yeah,
because it's another part of it is like you are away from home.
Yeah,
and I think as well, like, and don't get me wrong, like, and you would agree, like it's such an honour and a privilege to play first grade. So this is no like woe is me, but when you are a young man and you're watching your mates progress in their career and earn, let's just say, 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
And you're on like 50 or something.
Yeah.
You're sitting there questioning, going, "What am I doing?" Like they're building this really nice career, because at that point you haven't played first grade and you have got no idea whether you will. So it does take a special kind of commitment to go, you know what, I'm going to block that out. I'm going to keep earning peanuts for just the small chance of playing first grade.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it was like. And I'd go, like when I went back to Goulburn, and you'd often get asked, like, you know, how's it going? And you don't really have an answer. You're like, I actually don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be back here in 6 months' time, or if I'm going to be signed in 6 months' time, or just still living in Sydney, just hoping for the off chance that something will go my way. And I think the hardest sort of part was that you feel like you're stuck and you're not progressing anywhere sort of in your life. Like obviously I didn't have a partner or anything at the time, which didn't worry me anyway, but like I was no closer to buying a house or a unit, or and at the same time I was no closer to playing NRL. I was just working 40 hours a week for a landscaper in the Shire, which is not what I wanted to do for a career. But you sort of feel like you're stuck and
treading water almost.
Almost. And it was like, I'm glad that I got the opportunity that I have now, and I wouldn't like to still be landscaping at the moment.
So were you a music man or a potty man in the landscaping?
Music, radio. Yeah.
Okay, radio.
Yeah, my mate Reed had the Milwaukee radio, so it was, I can't even remember what the station was now, but it was as much as the work sometimes was difficult. It was like everything had a good and bad days, but like some of the guys that worked there and the boss, like some of the best people that like I still know now. Yeah. So my old boss Liam, he's a mad Sharkies fan. So if I ever needed to leave early to get to training or a game or whatever, like it was no dramas.
So good.
Whenever I needed a day off, like it didn't worry him, because he only paid me when I worked anyway. It's not like I was an apprentice or anything. So he was just so cruisy. And then some of the guys, like the two foremen, Reed and Riley and Pat, like who I'm still good mates with all three of them now. So like it taught me a lot too. You sort of, you know, not working hard, but you know, you do that sort of line of work and then you go into a rugby league system. It just makes you very appreciative and makes you want to stay where you are, because you know that there's guys out there that are busting their ass for 40 hours a week for, you know, not much in return sort of thing. So
I reckon Melbourne have got it right, making a lot of their new recruits or younger boys working. I reckon they, you know, because when I was coming through, I had to work, like I was working at a bottle-o. Yeah. I was working with this dude, so we would deliver all this alcohol out to the like surrounding liquor stores. And this dude I used to work with was like always in and out of prison. So like one day he'd be at work, and like the next day, I don't know what the right term is, jail, prison, I don't know, but he would just be like locked up or something. And then he'd be back a couple of weeks later. I don't know what it was, but anyway, so I do think working, it just makes you shows you, not to suggest that you're above working at all. It just makes you realise how lucky you are to be playing footy. Yeah, definitely. And I remember like sort of coming into my first pre-season, we'd be running over towards the field and Toby Rudolph would be like, Tommy, what were you doing 4 weeks ago? And I'd be like, landscaping. He goes, what would you rather be doing, this or that? And I'd be like, I'd rather be doing this. Absolutely. Thanks anyway. But like just coming in and, you know, you get on your off day, you're going in for a massage and having a swim and go for a coffee with a few of the, you know, NRL players after. As a 21-year-old and like all your mates are at work and that, they're the moments that you think of like you're pretty lucky. But at those same times, like I was only like on a training trial and I wasn't even signed at a club. So you feel good for a few hours, but after it, you're sort of going like, oh, you know, that was cool at the time, but I'm sort of not really closer to being that guy yet. Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like a facade almost, because you just don't have that contract. Okay, but 2022 rolls in, and this is where you get a full preseason with the squad and everything. Yeah. And you would have still been on a development deal, I'm assuming? No, I was on a training trial that year too. Okay, training trial, yeah. And then sort of every month I would just keep like signing a new
training trial deal. So I just started at the start of pre-season, and
Each month.
Yeah, I was got to the end of the month, and I have to sign the form to be able to get paid for the month. So there was me, myself, Jesse Colhoun, and Kale Euro. So we were on training trials, all three of us, for the full year, and we all ended up debuting that year. So
no way.
Yeah, so that was sort of coming in as sort of unknown again, and by the end of that year, we'd all earned contracts and signed deals and played first grade together. And I remember even in a couple of the finals games this year when like me and Kale were standing there, and like he's one of my good mates, and just saying to each other, like, we dreamed of this, like we're actually doing it now. So moments like that are crazy. And that was the year that Fitzy sort of said he wanted me around, but he didn't know how to work it out, contracts and all those sorts of things. And
because he would have inherited that salary cap, wouldn't have actually been his squad.
So that was good. And then sort of getting the news that I was getting kept on when my training trial expired at the end of the preseason, and I was like, well, that's one little step further than I've ever been. So that was a little win for me. And that was.
Did you just sign a 1 year deal after that?
So I signed at the end of that preseason before I debuted. I just was sort of keeping on signing them ones, and it was, I can't remember if it was the week. I think it was the week before I debuted. I'd signed a deal for the year after, or maybe I already had an option. I can't really remember, but I know at that time I was signed, and during that year I signed the deal that I'm on now. So it was sort of got to the end of the year, like after the debut and that sort of stuff, and just going like, fuck, not finally, but like I'm getting there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so the debut, how does that come about? Do you remember the conversation?
Yeah. So I think Wado was under a bit of an injury cloud, and we had trained like 2 days before the game and captain's run. So it's 2 days before the game, and Fitzy called me into his office, like when we're in the gym, just doing our prep and that sort of stuff. And I remember just walking into the room, and he sort of just had his hand out like for a handshake, and I was just going, like in my head, I was going, fuck, no way. And he just, that's when he told me I was debuting, and I was like, sort of sat there like a bit startled and like just thanking him and that, and he just sort of goes to me, you still got a game to play yet, right? Like you haven't actually done it yet. And just sort of going out, and I think like Bob and Jack Willie and a few of the boys were there, and they sort of I think they sort of had a bit of an inkling anyway, and they were all like looking and give the nod ahead, and the whole gym went nuts, and it was sick. It was
far out.
And then like sort of that arvo ringing mum and dad and that was crazy. Like, especially the few years prior, like when my dad wasn't well, I didn't know if he'd ever see me play another game of footy, and I was going to have him at Shark Park watching me debut on the weekend. So that was, it was unbelievable.
And so you said your dad wasn't well?
Yeah.
And so that was during all this we just spoke about?
Yeah.
Your dad also was struggling?
Yeah. So when I was in my first year of 20s, I think it was the week before round one, and I was driving after training on Friday night with Luke Pacelli. I don't know if you know who he is. He was with us in 20s. He's up at Falcons now, and my sister rings me like when I'm driving home and just goes, you need to come home, Dad's had a heart attack. And I'm pretty sure I just said like, oh, fuck off, and hung up. And then when I had my phone, I was like sort of stressing in my head. I was like, he was like, oh, what was that? And I was like, oh, my sister just rang me, like told me Dad's had a heart attack. Like, I think she's G'ing up. Yeah. And he was like, fuck, like you should probably ring her back. And I rang her back, and he sort of just, told me that, and I was a bit startled, and drove back to Goulburn. And as I turned up, there's like a park across the road from the hospital, and I sort of just get around the corner, and Mum's sort of standing outside the car with her hands on top of the car roof, and Dad's getting lifted in a helicopter coming to Sydney, and I was just like, fuck, shambles. And then sort of that time there, that was probably where, like, I hadn't even played a game of 20s yet, and I was like, nah, like I'm going to have to come home, like I'm going to have to work, help Mum out, those sorts of things. And
even just be around your father.
And sort of Mum was working at the time, and she'd work, instead of working from 9 till 5, she'd start at 6 in the morning and she'd finish at 1, and she'd drive from Goulburn to Concord every day Dad was in hospital, and spend a couple of hours with him, and drive home and just do that on repeat the whole time he was in the hospital.
How long was he in there for?
I think he was only in there for about just a bit over like a week and a half. Oof. And
Still a
like
lot, man.
weekends we'd be down there, and sort of at the point I was, got a bit of a like inspiration off mum, like she deserves me staying and having a crack
Yeah.
more than anything. She's done everything right by me my whole life, and it wouldn't be fair on her. Like, she'd sacrificed a lot of her time and those sorts of things getting me to where I needed to go in my whole life before that. And I just had a thought that she deserves me to have a real good go at this. So that was why I stayed around then. And he's doing all right now. Daddy ebbs and flows and has good days and bad days, but he's still around, and he still stands at the same place at Shark Park with mum every week that we play there. So it's
so
special
good, bro.
moments.
Far out. I mean, just to make it, like, added onto all the stuff you're dealing with just as a young man trying to chase your dream.
Yeah.
Then you got that, overshadowing in the back of your mind as well.
Yeah.
And you could have easily used it as a reason to go home. When things weren't going right, you go, look, it's just better if I just get home.
Yeah, for sure. And could have been that old guy in the pub that I could have made it, but had to come home. Could have used that one. But like, even just on the back of that, like, I was just happy Dad was alive more than anything, and that was just like, I was like, how good would it be to have him come and watch me play one game of 20s, and it got around. And then sort of the same thing with the reserve grade, and he'd be at Henson Park every week, and having him still around to be able to come and watch me debut was it was one of the proudest moments of my life so far.
And so, what do you remember from the debut? Anything specifically?
I remember very first touch, I get the ball and run at Satili Tupanua, and he bends his back, and I'm like not dazed, but when you get hit and you sort of can't see properly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, got one eye shut and I'm trying to see. And then next play, someone had to carry on a short side, and the play after I still can hardly see. And Teague, I think it was, gets the ball, and we had this shape, and the ball was coming to me again, and I couldn't see properly. I'm going like, what have I just got myself into? Caught the ball, played it, and then sort of the play after that was a kick chase, and I'm running down there, still can't see properly, and you got Teddy scheming the line, and I'm just going, don't pick me. And sort of didn't, but that was, we got beat pretty convincingly that night, but it was still good because that was Ronnie's 50th that night as well. And he was like one of my first mates when I first came here. So I come a year after him, but we started 20s together, and I was, I remember how happy I was for him when he debuted, and we got to share a little milestone together, and I think it was Bop's 200th Sharks game. Or 200 and it was a big milestone for him, for Fida. So there was sort of all three of us celebrating something on the same night, and though we didn't get the result, it was still cool to be a part of something like that with two of those guys.
And were you a part of any of the Newtown's grand final wins or performances, or in between?
So I was in 20s the year they won it. I played one game there that year.
Okay.
Still went on the Mad Monday, but
okay. So then the next year you end up playing, I think, like 14 games, 13 games, no, 18 games.
18, I think.
18.
Yeah.
I guess you're playing 18 games of first grade. You're probably just going, mate, this is the dream.
Yeah, it was cool. And obviously the debut against the Roosters, a team I'd supported my whole life, and then pretty much a year later, the second game I played again was against the Roosters. So, I remember just sort of having so long, not that it was long, it was a year between the games. It sort of felt like I was debuting all over again. Had all my mates from home come up again for it, and it was just sort of, a mirror image. But we ended up getting the win that night, and just getting a win in the NRL was singing the song in the sheds and having a beer with the boys it's probably the best feeling I've ever felt in my life, honestly. Sort of as the weeks got on, I sort of only started coming on in the second half for a little 15, maybe 20-minute max sort of stint. And as the year went on, I sort of was getting more time and either side of half time and those sorts of things, and just, finding my feet that year and starting to be more comfortable with being an NRL player was awesome. And it wasn't until the sort of the end of the year where you can sit back and just go like 2 years ago, I didn't think any of this would be possible, and I just played the majority of an NRL season, and sort of pinch yourself moments like that were crazy. And I was just so happy to be to be doing it, and to be doing it for Cronulla too, who were, you know, they'd stuck by me when they didn't have to, and just to be able to sort of give a bit back to them was special for me.
And so this year as well, especially this year, but like I'm sure you wouldn't have noticed this, but you start to get a bit of a cult hero following. Like the Sharkies fans love you. Come on with your strapping and all that. I'm sure the boys probably give you a bit of stick about it. Yeah. What was that like, the feeling of just, the Sharkies fans getting around you?
Yeah, it was cool. And I remember the first sort of time that it happened, I thought they were just like doing a Sharks chant.
Yep.
And it wasn't. Like, I remember Toby Rudolph wasn't playing this game, and they sort of sit behind where we sit on the bench. And he come over and he was like banging on the fence real loud, and I was first thought was like, oh, that's a bit odd. Like, why is he doing that?
Yeah.
And then I tuned in. I was like, oh, like the fuck, like that's my name. And like coming from somewhere like Goulburn and not thinking you're ever going to play an NRL game, and then you got a stadium sort of singing out your name, like that's pretty crazy. But
it's sick.
It's just like do get a bit of stick off the boys, but at the same time, like you sort of feed off the crowd in a game too. And if the boys on the field hear a bit of noise and it gives them a bit of a spike too, like it's all good.
Yeah, mate. It's so cool to see. And what's been your favourite? Because you've scored a couple of, or at least one runaway try, if I recall correctly. What's been your favourite try where you've gone, holy shit, I'm out in the open here?
The favourite one would have been the Warriors one last year off the sort of kick deflection where I ran like 70, but it was a knock on. But favourite one so far,
10 meaties.
Yeah.
Far out.
It's hard. The first one's always good. Like first NRL try, and the boys scrambling from everywhere to get around you, and that was cool, that one. And probably this year against the Dragons when we played them at home, it was the local derby, and I think I started and come off and then come back on, and first touch sort of scored again under the sticks, and we ended up winning that game by 6 points. So that was cool as well, especially the rivalry that we have with St George, to be able to sort of tick that one off. And I suppose then there's a Magic Round one too against the Roosters with a few minutes to go. Like that was that night.
Oh yeah, because you beat the Roosters, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was like 38-32 or something like that.
Yeah.
Would have been a fantastic game for a spectator, but sort of a couple of minutes to go, scoring that one and not putting it to bed, but sort of giving us a bit of a buffer. That was mad as well.
Magic Round too, holy
Saturday night game.
In Suncorp.
Yeah.
And so how long are you signed till?
Yeah, I'm off. Like I'm signed for 2025, but off after that. So working something out at the moment. Hopefully, try to get something done.
So you've already begun chats with the Sharkies?
Yeah. So hopefully sort something out.
Fingers crossed, eh? If you see, open the checkbook, son. Open the checkbook, mate. Mate, I ask all the boys this: favorite rapper of all time.
Favorite rapper?
If you're not a rapper, man, you're more than welcome to say another.
Not really. Yeah, actually, a bit of a closet Eminem fan.
Okay, mate, everyone is, seriously.
Yeah, like you don't hear from him for a while, and then the Spotify DJ will pop over you over when you're driving, and you're going like, I remember how good this dude was, and some of his songs back in the day used to be on the rugby league playlist. So probably him, I'd say.
Okay, favorite movie of all time.
Favorite movie, maybe Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, great movie.
Or Shawshank Redemption.
Mate, Shawshank Redemption's easily, like, everyone says that.
Yeah.
Hacksaw Ridge, though.
Yeah.
Great movie.
And I only seen it for the first time probably 12 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, really? Outstanding.
Mate, there's, that's a good war flick. Like, obviously, you don't enjoy the war side of it, but there's just something about...
Fury as well.
Oh, mate.
It's one of the best. There's a lot of good ones. Good ones.
I watched not Black Hawk Down. There was another one that I watched that has Matt Damon in it, and that I can't believe I'm forgetting it, but it's like a classic that I just only watched recently. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Mate, thanks so much for joining us, bro. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
What a bloody yarn. Thank you so much, bro.
Thanks, bro.